Next on Channel 3 News at 11.
I think there is substantial evidence that the United States government dumped waste material into that site.
Lethal landfill, a startling target-free investigation next on Channel 3 News at 11.
And now, live from WKYC's Digital Broadcast Center, this is Channel 3 News.
Illness.
It's very hard to watch somebody you love waste away.
Death.
He started out at about 185 or 90, and he weighed less than 120, and he died.
And accusations of a dark conspiracy surround a local landfill.
The lab found plutonium, but by that time they had already sealed up the well for another purpose.
Insiders say it's a cover-up at one of the highest levels of government. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tim White.
I'm Ramona Robinson.
For nearly 3 decades, 780,000 tons of hazardous waste and perhaps even radiation has been in the ground in Northeast Ohio.
Target 3 investigator Dave Summers joins us now with a startling look at what some call a dangerous disgrace in our own backyard. Dave?
Tim and Ramona, by today's standards, what and how waste was buried in the Industrial Excess Landfill, or IEL, at the height of the Vietnam War would be considered illegal. The U.S. and state EPA's own tests reveal killer chemicals and radiation in the dump. Still, no cleanup. Perhaps more startling than that, Target 3 Investigations tracks down the EPA insiders who are calling it a government cover-up at the Superfund site. The site is located just north of Canton. What whistleblowers have to say could impact Superfund sites nationwide.
I see the major problem at IEL being the bureaucracy goofed. They didn't do the job right in the first place, and they don't want to admit that mistake and do it right now.
Arguably, Chief Investigator for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Ombudsman's Office, Hugh Kauffman, is the leading authority on problems at Uniontown's Industrial Excess Landfill. He is an EPA insider whose job for the last 3 years has been investigating potential wrongdoing in the cleanup of America's most dangerous dump sites. IEL is one of those.
It's a complex case where the regional office in Chicago, Region 5, apparently did not follow EPA procedures prior to coming up with a recommended remedy.
In the details lie the mystery that has plagued investigators in the community of Uniontown for some 30 years. There was evidence of radiation here that the U.S. EPA discredited. There were accusations of water and ground test tampering by Region 5 investigators that some say led to a premature cleanup solution.
The remedy that we selected in 1989 was appropriate for the landfill, and that any subsequent information that has been brought to light would not negate that original 1989 remedy.
Director of EPA's Superfund Division, William Muno, defends EPA Region 5's testing and the proposed cleanup that is yet to be implemented.
Given the fact that we addressed those immediate health and environmental concerns, I'm less concerned that it's taking us a bit longer to ultimately implement the final remedy.
Muno says the final remedy will include a plastic cap over the 30-acre site and/or new trees and plants to help release naturally the poisons that lie deep below the surface. But below the surface...
Well, I think you have actually a fairly typical list of all of the synthetic organic chemicals that have been used in industry since World War II.
It is a list of substances the Agency for Toxic Chemicals says are linked to cancer, birth defects, and death. There have been TCEs, PCEs, heavy metals, all detected in the landfill in high concentrations. In 1991, Tom Grumbly was appointed by then head of the federal EPA, Bill Riley, to troubleshoot EPA Region 5's investigation into what went into the landfill.
They were playing the game that Johnny Carson made famous, Karnak, in which they had the answer before they really knew what the question was.
Of course, if you don't look, you don't find. So they can say they didn't find anything.
New York scientist Dr. Marvin Resnikoff was hired by the citizens of Uniontown with EPA grant money. He found perhaps the most startling of the landfill secrets, radiation. In his 1993 analysis, Resnikoff points out a state EPA test that shows radiation levels in a monitoring well at 140 times the naturally occurring rate.
They had high gross alpha measurements, and they couldn't account for where that alpha is coming from.
And when Resnikoff says alpha, he means radiation. The question, of course, is where did all of these contaminants come from? Who was doing the dumping at IEL? Over the next several nights, Target 3 uncovers evidence that points to the U.S. military, but the EPA identifies the primary polluters as Bridgestone, Firestone, B.F. Goodrich, and General Tire. Court records obtained by Target 3 indicate an Army nuclear biological chemical unit dumped there. Plus, as the story unfolds, of course, we're going to show you a study that indicates several unusual cancers in that area. Cancers that have been linked to the chemicals that have seeped out of this landfill and made their way into residents' well water.
Well, Dave, if regulation and records were so scarce, how do we find out today what's in the landfill?
It's kind of paleontological. It's kind of like that we find out about dinosaurs in the same way. Tim and Roland will trace the landfill users through its receipts, court documents, workers, and Uniontown residents. Coming up tomorrow, we'll take you to Southern California, where a former IEL worker now lives. He has some stories about the landfill that will make your hair stand up. Wait till you hear from him.
Dave, we'd just like to say that we're glad you're here. Dave is one of the most respected and toughest investigative reporters in Northeast Ohio. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
And a good guy.
Kind.